Hey guys, thanks for stopping by. If you like my video, please like and subscribe. Also check me out on Twitch as Floyd Mason.
Hello. Welcome back, Spooks fans. We are back, and we are back with a big one. We are on to book number 11, which is The Haunted Mask. One of the classics. Interesting enough, this is actually a first edition too, which is pretty crazy. Don't have the Halloween masks though. Somebody took that out. Don't blame them. Do not blame them. Would have been pretty cool to have as a kid. But this book to me, when I think of like the original Goosebumps, is the one that stands out. Is that a good thing? Like, some of them stand out and I didn't like them, some I did. We'll get through this one. But I feel, there's a lot of characters that kind of go on. And again, this one is helped by the fact that it also has a sequel, had a great, amazing episode. But, ones like Say Cheese and Die, Haunted Mask, and Night of the Living Dummy, I found have really kind of stood out of the early ones. And they all have sequels. They all had good episodes. But there's just something about this Haunted Mask that is just, this cover especially, I feel grabbed people. Got cool colors. We'll get more into it later, but it's a pretty good one. Spoiler alert, it's a good one. I also have the remake one. This one again, like, the mask is still awesome on it, but I don't like the colors nearly as much. The blue-green, I think, works so much better than this purpley one. I'm not big on these ones as a whole. I just think the all-around of it isn't as cool as kind of the contrasting colors. And then I actually have a very weird one. I have the newer copy of it. And, this cover is pretty good, although putting the sticker on, kind of covering half the Carly Beth is weird. But this is actually a UK version. I accidentally bought a bunch of UK ones, and I managed to replace all of them with North American ones, except this one. So I kept it in my collection until I can find another one of this style to replace it. But didn't realize it. Don't know if the person who sold them to me knew it either. They're a pretty good deal. So it was when I was starting to collect, so not a big deal. But yeah, I like this cover as well. I don't think it's quite as good, but it's a pretty good one. Yeah. So this story is mostly about a girl named Carly Beth. And basically Carly Beth is scared of almost everything. Story does a lot at the start to kind of bring that home. So she's got her friend Sabrina, and then they're also friends with two boys named Steve and Chuck. And basically Steve and Chuck love to scare Carly Beth. So they're really trying to build it up at the start of the story about how much of a scaredy cat Carly Beth is. So they're kind of talking about it. Her and Sabrina started the story in the cafeteria, just talking about how she's been scared before and all this stuff. And one of the boys then kind of sneaks up and puts her hand on her, and she screams. And just kind of showing the thing like, yes, this is how scared she is. Like, somebody touching her on the shoulder scares her. She is just a scaredy cat. Then one of the boys pulls out a sandwich and says, I think it's reasoning something like, oh, it's turkey, but Mom forgot the mustard, so it's too dry. So Carly Beth is like, oh yeah, I'll eat it. And she goes and takes a big bite out of it, and something tastes weird, and she opens it up, and there's a worm in it, and she's bit into the worm. So she's kind of freaking out. The boys are laughing, and then they tell her it's a rubber. Oh, we're just kidding. It's a rubber worm. And she reaches down and touches it, and it is absolutely a real worm. And so, yeah, like, just double fake her out. It is a running kind of theme through this book. But why she's friends with these two, I have no idea. They are such garbage, such horrible friends. And all they do, they like to play pranks on her and scare her. But like, there's pranks, and like there's a prank later in the book that they act like a bigger deal, which we'll get to. But like, this one's horrible. Like, making someone bite into a worm is disgusting. Yeah, she goes home. She's very upset. Like, goes home, kind of hides it from her mom. Her mom shows her this paper mache kind of head that she's made of her daughter. Carly Beth thinks it's kind of weird. Thinks it's almost a little too lifelike. Doesn't really like it, but her mom's a little hurt by it, so she's like, "Oh no, I love it. I love it." And then her mom lets her know that she's made the duck costume that she'd asked for Halloween. So Carly Beth's like, I don't really want any more. Like, she's really got in her head that she wants to use Halloween to scare the boys and everyone. She wants to be the one scaring people. She's tired of being scared. But she had asked for this duck costume. Her mom made it. She goes up to look at it, and some of the duck costume jumps out at her and scares her, and it's her brother Noah. So it's just that thing again where, like, everyone just scares Carly Beth. Like, her friends do it. Her brother constantly does it. It's that thing where they constantly talk about how she's such a scaredy cat, but it's just like everyone's jumping out every corner you take, someone's jumping out to scare you. Which I don't know, that scared me too. So I think it's a little unfair that she's picked on so much, especially by her friends. Sabrina calls her, and asks they have to finish the science fair project. They're making the planets or something like that. But then Sabrina kind of gaslights her a bit about not really Chuck and Steve's fault, and it's like Sabrina's also not a good friend. Just kind of letting them get away with their shit behavior. Quite frankly, and just kind of it just kind of shows. You can kind of see that why Carly Beth is kind of wanting to scare everyone. Like, it's just like they're all kind of against her, and I don't blame her. So they get together, they finish their project, they're in school the next day, waiting to kind of show it to the adjudicators or whoever's looking at them. And when they're almost up to their table, again, either Chuck or Steve, they're interchangeable to me. But one of them yells, "Oh, my tarantula's gotten out." And then he sneaks up behind her and grabs her on the leg. So she thinks it's tarantula, starts screaming, "Get it off me, get it off me." She knocks over her and Sabrina's entire project. And it turns out, I think it's just Steve. And they're all laughing at her again. So she gets upset and she just kind of runs off. Yeah, she kind of gives this language of, "I will get them back. I am going to get them back." And again, Stein does a pretty good job in these first couple chapters, just building up that her friends pick on her, that she scares easily, and just this kind of mantra that she has that she has to get them back. And this is the stunt, it doesn't quite happen yet, but they're talking about it, and Steve calls and apologizes to her, and he's like, "Oh, I'm really sorry," and stuff. And it's this one's not nearly as big of a deal to me as the worm. The worm is gross. This one's mean, but it's not a real tarantula. You just grabbed her. So I get maybe it's because the science fair project got knocked over, but it's just a couple plans. They talk about how much better every other project is than theirs. So I don't think it's a big deal. He maybe did them a favor. They may get a better mark without it, but still very mean trick. Sabrina's still giving her no support. So now it's Halloween night, and she's wanted to go and check out this new costume shop, new mask shop in town that opened recently, and she's kind of late to do it because she had to watch her brother. Her mom was working late. I think they say at one point her dad's on business somewhere, which Stein loves to do. He loves to write one parent out of the story entirely, so you don't have to worry about them, which I think is great. We don't want the parents in there, but a lot of times they're kind of just not there. So it's really just her mom with her. So mom gets home, she runs off to go to the mask store, and she gets there and it's closed. So she's like, "Oh, I missed my chance. I guess I can be the duck. That's not going to scare anybody." But luckily, the guy inside notices her and kind of, it's kind of "Oh, we're closed." And she's like, "Oh, please, please, I really need a mask. I want a scary mask." And he reluctantly lets her in. Keeps kind of trying to hurry her up. So she looks through the store, not seeing anything scary. He's trying to talk to her about this gorilla mask and this other mask, and she's not having it. And then when he's kind of off doing something else, she wanders into a back room and she sees just 8 or so horrifying masks, just disgusting. She describes a few of them. They're pretty gross. They're pretty gross sounding. And so, she wants them. He comes back and he's like, "Oh, these aren't for sale. You can't have these. These are too scary." And she kind of bargains with him for a bit, and she's like, "I really want it." And he's like, "I think you'll be sorry if you take this." And she's, "No, like, I want it. Like, I need this. I need to scare my friends." And so he reluctantly sells it to her. So she's excited. She goes home. She tries to put it on and scare Noah, which Noah's terrified. Jumps, like, she tells him it's her, and he's just like, "Wow, like, that's crazy, like, it's so scary, like, even your voice changed, like, it didn't even seem like you." So she's extremely happy. She tries to get it off because she has to finish getting ready, and she kind of struggles with it, and it's a bit sticky. Like, she talks about how tight it sits on her, and it's just got like this foul smell. But it takes a little minute to get off, but she manages to do it, and she finishes getting ready, and she kind of gets lucky. The dad calls because the mom wants to see her in her duck costume, and she hasn't told her mom that she's not going as the duck. Dad calls, off the hook, sneaks out, off to Sabrina's. So basically on the way there, she really starts at this point when she's wearing the mask to obsess about scaring Steve and Chuck. So she sees some kids on the way there. Oh, sorry. One part that I forgot as well is she decides before she leaves to add to her costume that she actually takes the paper mache head of herself to kind of be like, "This is Carly Beth. Like, this is her. I'm not her. I'm a monster, and I've taken her head." Which I don't really get what the scare of that is, but I mean, it works later. So yeah, she's got the paper mache head, and she's kind of carrying it on a broomstick, and then she's just wearing the mask. So when she gets close to Sabrina, she sees 2 kids who she initially just assumes it's Chuck and Steve because they're 2 young men, I guess. So she jumps out and scares them, and it's not them, and they're pretty startled. I think it implies they're a bit younger than her. So their mom comes up and just kind of starts asking what is wrong with her, why she's scaring the boys, to apologize. And this is the first glimpse we get of, like, Carly Beth is kind of changing. So she doesn't back down. She basically just tells the women to stuff it, and she's just aggressive and yelling at them. And she gets a lot of enjoyment out of this scare. She loves it. She's used to being the one scared, so being able to scare people really what things she did really made her feel good. And you're kind of seeing, she's like, "Wow, like, where did that come from?" kind of deal. Yeah, she also has, it says she has like angry thoughts, like she thinks about she wants to tear the woman apart. Like, it's pretty aggressive. Like, she escalates pretty quickly just from this woman asking her to apologize for scaring the 2 kids. But the kids are just like, "Let's just leave," and so the mom finally pulls them off. Sabrina sees her, and she's just like, "That mask is crazy. Like, where did you get it?" And Carly Beth tells her, "Oh, I got the mask store, and like, I can't wait to scare Steve and Chuck." And Sabrina doesn't think it's gonna work. Like, even though she's like, "Oh, it's terrifying," like, they're just pretty cool. Like, they're pretty cool guys. Like, I don't know. Yeah, basically that's kind of all she wants to think about. So the boys are supposed to meet them there, but they have to look after one of their sisters or something, so they'll meet up with them later. She's obviously upset, but just kind of is like, "Well, we'll find them at some point. Let's go trick-or-treating." So as they're walking, Sabrina's just kind of talking a lot, and Carly Beth just kind of freaks out again and starts choking her out of nowhere. Like, she gets so crazy aggressive so quick. And Sabrina's just like, "What are you doing?" And Carly Beth tries to play it off, and then she's like, "I think we should split up. We can cover more houses. I'm going to run off." And again, she is just obsessed with finding the 2 boys. She doesn't really care about them. She starts just kind of causing a ruckus. She finds some other kids and kind of tries to steal their candy and fighting them. Before she left Sabrina as well, they got apples from one house, and so she just threw the apples at the house. So she's just kind of changing, right? And right now you're just kind of like, okay, like is it just this confidence in the mask? Is it, something else going on? Is she just kind of living out this fantasy she's had of being kind of the aggressor because she's been picked on so much? And so finally, when she's on her own, she finds the guys, she sees them, and she sneaks up on them and jumps out and scares them. And they're kind of like startled at first, but they realize it's her, and they're kind of laughing a bit. And they don't seem that scared. Like, they're definitely initially kind of, like that jump scare, but then they're kind of laughing it off. And then there's all of a sudden, because she's still holding the bust, and she kind of describes it as the eyes move on it, and it mouths, "Help me, help me." And this terrifies the boys, and they run off. Now, Stein does a little bit so he does that, and they get all scared, and they run off, and then that kind of ends the chapter. And the next chapter is Carly Beth going, well, maybe it didn't do that. Maybe I'm just seeing things. Maybe it's dark, and it's kind of like little bit of a cop-out of kind of putting in this supernatural thing, and then immediately backtracking it, even though it was used to scare the boys. But she's feeling great. She got what she wanted. She scared them. And she just drops the bust, and she's like, I don't care anymore. Like, that's it. And she kind of goes running off. And she eventually finds Sabrina. She tells her about it, and just like, oh, they were terrified. Like, they were crying. Like, she definitely overplays it, but she's just like, oh, they were so scared. So get back to Sabrina's, and they're kind of going through the candy. And this is when Carly Beth realizes that she can't get the mask off. So she can't find a way to grab it. She can't get it off. Sabrina goes and gets scissors, and she goes to try and cut it, and she can't find the line from the mask to the skin. It's basically just connected to her skin now. So they're both kind of freaking out. Carly Beth just runs. She just leaves. She runs. She just runs through the streets, and she ends up finding herself back at the mask shop. So she's like, oh, like, he must know what to do. He's got to help me. And he's still there, and he's kind of like, yep, I knew you'd be back. I knew this would happen. There's nothing I can do. Except for this one thing that I can do. It's another one of those, like, and I get it, but Stein loves to have, he loves having his every chapter cliffhanger, and then resolving it immediately in the first sentence of the next one kind of deal. But basically he lets her know that he actually created these masks, and that they're real, and they kind of can take over you and your feelings, and they're called the Unloved. Every once in a while, he said someone comes and gets one, but it's always an issue, and it's always caused trouble, and there's not really a way to get it off. So that's what's been happening to her. The mask has actually been taking control of her. That's what has lowered her voice. So it's made her more aggressive. It's actually all the mask. Again, I'm not usually as big a fan of kind of the supernatural of it, but this one I think works. Again, it's kind of built up. Like, you have to take that leap of faith of, okay, he scientifically created these masks that can kind of control you. But it works in the sense of the story. The story is still about a girl being bullied, and kind of her getting something that gives her the courage to kind of give it back, and then almost kind of that power being too much for her and starting to scare her, and her not knowing what to do about it. So he tells her that the only way to get it off, and you can only get it off once, is to find a symbol of true love, or something like that, or real love, or pure love, or something like that. So that's the only way to do it, because these masks are the Unloved, that it will kind of repel them, and you can kind of save yourself. Then what happens is the other masks apparently just come alive. So he just starts yelling, "Run, run!" And she books out of there, and the masks are chasing her. And so she's just kind of running around again, and she doesn't know what to do. And she comes up with the idea of the bust that her mom gave her as a symbol of true love. Her mom made it because she loves her so much. She's like, that's going to be it. But she threw it after she scared the boys. So she doesn't really remember where it is. So she's just kind of running around. The masks are chasing her. And she finally kind of just finds it. And she's holding it up, and she's like, this is it. And nothing's really happening. So the masks are trying to circle her, and she's getting scared. And she just pulls the bust, apparently, entirely over her head. So I didn't think it sounded that big, but apparently it can go over her head and over the mask. And when she does this, she realizes that the other masks have kind of disappeared, and she tries again, and she can finally get the mask off. So she finally gets it off, and she's like, "Whew, like that was scary. That's over." So she goes home, and she's like, "Oh, like what a crazy night I've had." And her mom's like, "Oh, like what happened to your candy?" She's like, "Oh, just crazy." And from the other room, she hears her brother come in, and he goes, "Wow, like how scary do I look in this mask?" And he's put it on, and that's where the story ends. So, as a whole, again, it's kind of a story of a girl who's been bullied and kind of finding that means to get back to them, and it kind of backfiring her. Just that want for kind of revenge, kind of paying you back, and needing to find that symbol to beat it. So as a whole, I think this story is pretty good. There's definitely some flaws in it. Again, I feel like she gets gaslit a lot about the worm. The worm's pretty gross. I feel like how sorry the boys were should be flipped to be after the worm item instead of the tarantula. Like, I almost feel like they should have swapped those two and kind of the feelings, because it just felt like the worm was like gross and laughed at her, but she let it go quickly, where she was more upset about being told there was a tarantula touching her when it was just a hand. And again, you kind of get into this supernatural of it with the masks. But again, it's similar to one like State of the Basement, where it's kind of like, okay, well, there's a scientist and he made this thing. And while it's unbelievable and impossible, it works in the sense of the story. I would say the big thing that like the flying masks are a bit much. Like them chasing her is a little much. I feel like there's one other scene that I talked about that just is kind of whatever. Don't remember what it was. But like her choking out a friend seems very weird too. But I mean, again, it's kind of like the mask taking over. Like you see it, like her wanting to tear their mother apart. Like how quickly this mask has made her violent, and angry, and just kind of, not the person she usually is. Like this timid, scared girl. So I would say really the masks flying around are the only part I don't really care for in this story. I think it's, even as far as the sci-fi goes, it's a little far-fetched. How easy he sold her the mask is also a little absurd, but in the end, it all adds to the story. So, I mean, I gotta give this one an S. It is generally creepy. It flows well. I mean, like a lot of it is kind of the same thing. Like a lot of it is just on Halloween and then walking around, her trying to scare them, and then running. But the flow of it is pretty nice. It keeps you engaged. It keeps you wanting to read what's next. It's pretty obvious, I think, that the mask is clearly evil and doing something to her, but that doesn't take away from the experience or the story at all. And yeah, it's just one of those classic ones that just, it works on almost every level. It's just got everything in it to make a full story. I'd say one ruining item is the fact that they made a second one, and I don't think it ever mentions about the brother. Now, in theory, again, the first time she put it on, she was able to get it off. It was a little tricky, but she was able to get it off. So I'm going to chalk it up to, she just grabs it, rips it off him right away before it has time to connect to him. And when he said, it can only be removed once, he meant from that person. That every person could wear it once, but once you get it stuck on, you can't. They might address it in the second one. I can't really remember. The second one's actually, we won't get there for a while, but one of the boys wants the mask and like finds the same unloved masks. So, it's kind of interesting that it continues that story from kind of another perspective. But this is just a great story. It's a great read. I don't think it hurts that the episode was awesome as well. One of the best episodes as I recall. I remember liking it, and Camp Nightmare were the two that I really, whenever there was a replay on that, and actually State of the Basement. those three are the three I really remember liking the show of a lot, and rewatching when I could. So as for the cover, again, not really going to beat around the bush on this one. Easy S. This mask design is awesome. This is such a great picture of the mask. It's terrifying. If someone jumped at me with this, I'd be terrified. Even now at my age, I like the color scheme a lot. The blue and yellow is a good color match. Because almost all his books he uses kind of a 2-color scheme, and this is one that whenever he uses it on a book, it usually works pretty well. I think it was kind of a similar one almost on Monster Blood, and it's one of the only saving graces of that cover because I find that one pretty boring. But yeah, Easy S. One of the best books here. I think this is my second double S along with Camp Nightmare, which are 2 pretty close in a row. I don't expect that to happen very often. It's hard to nail both. I think there'll be more S covers than S stories. I don't think there's too many kind of S level stories. I'm gonna guess in a series of whatever there are 62 books, I'm gonna guess under 10 of them hit S. Although how many do I have right now? Actually, we got one. I mean, we're already at 3, but how many can really get there? Can we get another? I mean, 3 out of 11 is not bad, but we'll see. Yeah, that's going to do it for this one. So hopefully you enjoyed. Again, if you have any thoughts on the book or on the videos themselves and what you'd like to see, let me know. Again, I just kind of do this for fun. Keeps me reading them. I'm about halfway through the next book, so hopefully we get that one out soon.
Thanks for watching. Please click to check out my other videos, like and subscribe, and come by Twitch under Floyd Mason to join my live streams.